have Duke the 1, Houston the 2. They're the two best defensive teams in the country. I want to see them play for the right to go to the Final Four because I think that would be a kick-ass game.
Duke is really great on both ends of the floor. They can score and they can defend, and that's why they win by big numbers all the time, because they're really good on both ends of the floor. I don't trust Houston's offense.
Pharrell Coast to Coast, only on SportsGrid.
I talked about AZ Fudd a lot, folks, and said when she got back from that knee injury, remember, it's the second ACL tear she's had in her career, that she was going to be a difference maker. UConn is plus 330. They're not going to get challenged again in the Big East until they come out of conference play in a conference tournament. I still like them at plus 330 to win a national championship.
Betting above the rim, only on SportsGrid.
I feel when I look at this Arizona team, I don't take them serious as a national title threat because you're asking Caleb Love to bottle magic that I just don't even think exists.
4.4, 6.6, 7.4, 7.7, 7.8. This guy is literally taking, he'll shoot you out of games, Kevin.
Game time decisions, only on SportsGrid.
The two guys that can do it all.
Too much electricity this morning.
This is a good time. We're having a lot of fun.
I had to do a triple take.
Ka-ching!
Why? Because of parity.
I didn't mean to offend.
Yeah, it's not going to happen.
Load management is a dirty word.
Let him rip.
You know what? Circumstances provide the results.
What? How do you do this once?
Oh, Donnie, you got such a good show there.
A network that is booming.
The early line, only on
And welcome in. It's in-game live game day here on a fabulous Friday. Scott Wetzel, Joe Ben sitting in for Dave Sherapan tonight. My partner in crime on Saturdays and Sundays joins us for a little Friday festivities. How about that? Same routine though, Joe. Football, no. But basketball, yes. College and NBA style. Little NHL. We got the trade deadline. We got the Aaron Fox going back to Sacramento for the first time tonight. So a lot to get to over the next 2 hours. How are you this evening, Joe?
I'm doing great, but I'm not a Bruins fan. And as a Bruins fan that you are, Scott, I can't believe you called it a fabulous Friday. How are you feeling after the trade deadline? Your team complete sell-offs here. End of an era with Brad Marchand gone. Are you feeling okay about tonight?
Yeah, I tried to forget about that, Joe. Thanks for bringing that up first minute of the show. It is, Brad Marchand to Boston Bruins fans. I mean, listen, he's not as good as some of these guys, but, that's like Sidney Crosby if he would have got traded from Pittsburgh, right? Or pick Ovechkin from Washington. I mean, he's in that category. He's a pain in the butt. He's this, he's that. He's dirty. He's a, typical hockey player, right? But he's our guy, So now all of a sudden, I guess they got a little taste of that, with the Nations 4, with him being on Canada. And I don't know, maybe, I know this is goofy, Joe, but maybe they said, okay, that didn't go so bad, and they even won. Maybe as a Bruin, the fan will accept the fact that he's no longer with us. He's on the other side. I don't know, but it's kind of, I don't know what the stalemate was with the contract. He wanted 2 years. Supposedly Boston only wanted to give him one. Give him 2 years. What's the difference? I mean, he's been on the team for so long. He's been the heart and soul of the team. He's the captain and everything, and you trade him for, nothing. So, yeah, disappointing day. Thanks, Joe.
Well, I had to get it over and done with. Pulling off that Band-Aid, Scott, I didn't want to ask you in a half an hour. Like, it didn't matter because it was probably one of the biggest surprises for me of the trade deadline, other than Mikko Rantanen going to the Dallas Stars. Now, the Dallas Stars have moved to that second favorite spot to take the Stanley Cup. What do you think that Mikko Rantanen will bring to the table for the Dallas Stars? Do you think he's going to get that offensive production that they had hoped in Carolina?
Yeah, I tell you, that is so bizarre. I don't understand why Carolina would trade all the things they gave up to Colorado to get a guy that they knew was in the last year of his contract, that they knew was not being traded because Colorado wasn't going to sign him. And without doing any kind of research, apparently, to find out what he wanted, you trade for the dude, and then you realize 2 weeks later, you know what? We're not going to re-sign you either, so we're going to have to trade you again. But they actually got a couple first-round draft choices. They got a lot back for him. So that does that signal, kind of the end of Carolina's chances of winning the Cup, perhaps. But I tell you what, the Eastern Conference is just going to be brutal. With Florida making the deals they made, and now Dallas. I mean, it's going to be a great post. Eastern and Western Conference, both are just going to be great. From the first round on, Joe, it really is amazing.
Oh, I completely agree. It's going to be a fantastic run for the Cup there. And the books do think Carolina is so much worse off because they were in that second role there with Mikko Rantanen on their books. And now without him, with him moving to the Dallas Stars, you're seeing Carolina move from that +5, +600 favorite down to a +1,200 favorite with so many teams sitting above them, including the Washington Capitals, who are in action tonight or at +1,100, the Vegas Golden Knights, who are +1,000, the Colorado Avalanche at +900. Avs have loaded up as well, Scott, so really interesting to see. But the Florida Panthers, Dallas Stars, and the Edmonton Oilers are those three top favorites out there.
Yeah, and Edmonton was the favorite, Joe. I remember looking at that last week or earlier this week, actually, and now they're the third choice behind Florida at 5-1. Dallas 6-1 and Edmonton at +750. So, boy, could the Stars do it? Can this? They've won a cup recently, so Buffalo Sabre fans will tell you that. So it's not like they haven't ever won before, but when you think traditional NHL great teams, right? Tampa Bay's been good, Florida's been good, Carolina's good, even though they don't have a cup. Dallas has been there; they've been at the doorstep, but they just can't get over the hump. And it goes back to the question I had earlier. If you're an NHL fan, would you rather have your NHL favorite team win the Stanley Cup or the United States win that Four Nations tournament? And it may have been an even split, but if you're a Dallas Stars fan, you're saying, all right, well, we'll take a cup. That's not a bad thing. Can Oettinger get the job done?
Yeah, you definitely have the defense there. You have the goaltending there with Oettinger, as long as he can handle the pressure in the playoffs, which we have seen him in years be able to handle that pressure. So between Bobrovsky of the Florida Panthers, Jake Oettinger, I trust more in Bobrovsky of the Florida Panthers, but Dallas has all the elements. And if Mikko Rantanen can connect with that offense out there on the ice, that Dallas Stars forward lines should be so powerful, Scott.
Yeah, that should be it's really good. So, actually, let me ask you. So, who do you think? Are you surprised? One, Sidney Crosby wasn't traded. I'm not. And then two, outside of the big trades, which team do you think really maybe helped themselves or hurt themselves by not making any moves?
I'm shocked by Sidney Crosby. I would have loved to have seen him move. I think he deserves to finish off with a stronger team, but he wants to stay in Pittsburgh. He likes being on that team. So I think that was part of him as well, looking to stay there. I'm shocked by the Kings that the Kings didn't add another forward. I thought that they needed more scoring out there. So I did really think that they lost at the trade deadline. Calgary, we know, did nothing, but Calgary over a month ago made those trades with the Flyers, picking up Frost and Farabee. So they are okay where they were sitting. I do think Vancouver needed to do a little bit more out there as well, but I like what the Colorado Avalanche did, getting Nelson over from the Islanders. He was an emotional guy the other night being interviewed. He knew that he was going to be going somewhere, but I do think he's a great pickup for the Isles out there. I think he's going to fit in nice. He has that speed, and you look at his scoring on 5-on-5, you're going to see Brock Nelson really be impactful for the Colorado Avalanche. And you look at those forwards out there, you're adding him to those lines with Nathan McKinnon, Necas. You've got the same sort of speed out there on the ice, and you got Cale Makar, and Cale Makar continuously being so impactful for that team, a defenseman that's breaking records game in and game out, it seems. Last night, another big night. I do think Colorado is worth a shot here for the Cup. They're going to be so strong, especially with Mackenzie Blackwood in goal. If Mackenzie Blackwood can just step it up just one more level, Scott, this team could be unstoppable.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. That's been the issue. Different face. It's a new guy this year, but it's the goaltending is still the question mark for Colorado. But that should be good. That should be a lot of fun this postseason. So, bunch of games tonight, a few anyway. You wonder how some of these teams are going to react today and tomorrow. With all the rumors of all the players maybe being moved. Trade deadline is always tough in all the sports. But you just wonder, is that going to be a reprieve for some teams, give them a little bit of a lift? Is it going to be a little bit of a downer for people that maybe actually wanted to be traded? But on the surface, Devils not responding too well to Jack Hughes' injury. Down 2-0 tonight against the Winnipeg Jets, Joe. Midway through the second period, Winnipeg just scored again, now minus 950. 5.5 is your over-under. Strong trends there to the under, both the Devils and Jets, including Winnipeg 5 straight. That's where I went with this one. 2-0, 13 minutes left to go in the second period.
Yeah, I looked at the Jets in reg, and Scott, before I forget to mention it, you talked about these teams and how they're going to be feeling after these trades. I think the most effective player out there will be Brady Tkachuk. Josh Norris being traded from the Ottawa Senators. He's not going to be happy. Remember last year when Sidney Crosby, and I'm forgetting who he lost. Sidney Crosby lost that guy that was always with him. The Penguins came out so flat last year for 8 games after. Sid looked like he just hated playing hockey. I think that's what you're going to see out of Brady Tkachuk. They face the Rangers tomorrow. But Winnipeg Jets, Greg, what do you do now?
Yeah. Exactly. All right, more coming up just underway in Game Live.
So my team didn't win this weekend, but I still did with this app that's taking over the game. Sports Millions Pick'em lets you make quick and easy predictions. Pick your favorite players, go higher or lower, and you can still win big even if your team loses. Plus, the multiplier is insane. With just a few picks, you can win big money. So get on it. They've got a welcome bonus to help you start off your winning streak.
Anyone that's been to a sporting event, the atmosphere before a game, I think Game Time Decisions has that same exact atmosphere. This is our arena. This is what we do. There is going to be an energy to Game Time Decisions that you will feel night in and night out. The excitement you get when you lock your bets in, when you're figuring out what you want to do, we can zone in on the biggest games each night. I want this to be the place that people come to before the game starts so they feel as ready as possible to lock in their cards. We are going to hit every single one of those markets that you need to know about. We're going to go through every single thing, and I've got a great team behind me that's going to help me get the job done. There is not going to be a better place, I promise you, than Game Time Decisions to get that new information, react to it, and be able to then bet accordingly. We will have everything at our disposal, and we will use that to our advantage. I'm Kevin Walsh. Tune into Game Time Decisions from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern on SportsGrid.
Two guys that can do it all.
Too much electricity this morning.
This is a good time. We're having a lot of fun.
I had to do a triple take. Ka-ching! Why? Because of parity.
I didn't mean to offend.
Yeah, it's not going to happen.
Load management is a dirty word.
Let him rip.
You know what? Circumstances provide the results. What?
How do you do this one?
Oh, Donnie, you got such a good
A network that is booming.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
Hey, and welcome back. It is In-Game Live Game Day here on the grid, just underway. Hour number 1 of our 2-hour extravaganza. Scott Wetzel, Joe Benson, and for Dave Sherapan. Usual show. We got Black Clouds, which is on. We should change it to Red Cloud because they've been red hot. Hit another winner last night. 4-0 this week. 8-1 our last 9 Black Cloud plays. So we'll do that later on tonight. We got SGPs. Joe and I will both do one. We got Colby Dant, little college basketball at the bottom of the hour. Brady Cannon next hour, little golf, and then our good buddy Cam Stewart to close out the program. So a lot to get to, Joe. Little NBA stuff. Let's hit some action there. Cleveland struggling early. Leads now at Charlotte, though, 63-52, laying 16.5, which is what the line was to start the game, which is just nuts. This is a road game. I mean, what would Cleveland be favored at home against Charlotte? 20, 21? Over under 236.5. I laid off the game because I love playing unders on Charlotte and I love playing overs on Cleveland, so they're kind of colliding. And the numbers are really similar, so I'm not even getting like a good number to bet, either higher or lower. So, but at the half, Cleveland by 11.
Yeah, I came into this one laying the 16.5 with the Cleveland Cavaliers.
Really?
I just couldn't see the Hornets getting things done. You look at Cleveland, they've been rolling nice and hot, winning their last 12 games. And I just went, It seems like such a big number, but I can't back the Hornets and I can't find a way that I'm comfortable backing the Hornets in the matchup. So for me, I'm going to hold tight with the Cavs, hopefully that they're able to pull away and hold this lead that they have here in this one, Scott. So right now, I'd still back them laying the 16.5.
All right. You got your Toronto Raptors, on the podcast, we all have our bets and stuff, and I got a couple of guys that have played under 30.5 wins Toronto, and he's counting that as a victory. And I'm telling him, I don't know about that. You look at their schedule, boy, it is one cupcake after another. They're back-to-back against Washington. They got Charlotte on there. They got every dog. Topeka High is on there. So they're a little ways away from that final playoff spot, 5. But they were favorites tonight coming into the game, 4.5, 5.5 against the Utah Jazz, another dog team. They're tied right now at 32. Laying the 4.5, pretty much what it was to start the game. 9 minutes left to go in the second quarter.
It feels like both of these teams want to take the loss. I know Toronto fans think that the Raptors want to get the win, but you look at them in some of these games, Scott, and I feel like they're trying to throw these games, but haven't been able to in the last couple where they've been able to get the win. So
they've been winning, yeah.
Yeah, they have. But it looks like they're not trying to win, right? It looks like they're doing everything to try to take that loss. And so I struggled to back the Raptors laying points, and I really have a hard time laying the points with them because of what I've seen out there on the court. But Utah's thrown in the towel for how long now? They have been strong versus the Raptors, covering the spread in the last 4. So I put a little bit of money on Utah, plus I got them at 6.5. So yesterday, when I got that at 6.5, I jumped on it thinking the Raptors would win this by, 4 points. So right now, live number 4.5. I probably would lean to the Raptors, but not feeling too great about it.
Yeah, but me neither. If anything, I would have played the over. And right now it's 224.5. That's pretty much where it was to start the game. A little bit less, but here's another game that I had no idea. A lot of ugly, weird games in the NBA tonight. Memphis at Dallas, Joe. And under normal circumstances, I would say go ahead, play Memphis because Dallas is just a train wreck, right? The one game they had without Kyrie Irving, they lost by 30 points the other day. But then you look at Memphis, 3-8 straight up their last 11. 1-9-1 against the spread in those 11 games, including 5 straight losses against the spread. I mean, they are in a serious trouble here. Dallas has lost 5 of 6, but Memphis was a whopping 10-point favorite. I was like, I definitely wasn't doing that. And lo and behold, here are the goofy Dallas Mavericks, right? Up 8, 35-27. I don't know what's got into Memphis. Memphis is still a 3.5-point favorite right now. I don't know. Again, it's a tough game to play, but if anything, I was afraid Dallas might play a little. They played so poorly last game. They can't possibly be that bad. So I thought they would respond today, and so far they have.
Yeah, I thought they would respond too, but slower here. I was looking at the Memphis Grizzlies to come out strong in that first quarter. They've been able to be really strong in the first quarter versus Dallas, winning the last 4 here. So I laid the 3.5, Scott, in the first quarter. So my bet is already done and over, as they were not able to play strong in that first quarter at all, with the Dallas Mavericks outscoring them 31-22. So laying 3.5 definitely was not the place I wanted to be with the Memphis Grizzlies. Jumping in now, I don't know. I think you're too late, right? Because if you didn't grab the Dallas Mavericks for the full game going into this one, plus the points, I don't want to grab them now, plus 3.5. Do you?
No, like I said, I think I'll stay away from that one. I don't know what to make out of that. If I had to originally, I would have taken Dallas, but you're right, at 3.5, there's way too much time left in this game. You would think somewhere along the line Memphis would turn it around, but it's just a weird game. OKC, speaking of weird, Joe, I mean, I don't get this. It's a who's who of who's not playing for OKC tonight. Chet Holmgren out. Isaiah Hartenstein out. Cason Wallace out. Wiggins out. How about Gilchrist Alexander? He's out. Jalen Williams out as well. I should have mentioned him first. And then you got their best player, obviously Gilchrist Alexander, and he's out because he's resting. All the other guys are hurt, supposedly. And so on all days to rest a player, why would you choose this one when you got 3-4 other starters who can't play legitimately because of injuries? This is the game you're going to decide to rest Alexander, who, oh, by the way, as I was telling Ranieri earlier, the guy's 26 years old and OKC didn't play yesterday. He really needs a rest? Really? We're not laying bricks here, people. It's basketball. So I like playing overs on those things. They were only a 2-point favorite. Joe, I love betting on these teams that don't play their star players. I really do. But this was like one too many. So I played the over because we always get the scrubs that come in and score a bunch of points.
Okay, well, I heard you in my head, Scott. When I looked at this line, I heard you saying it's going to be the next man up style of game. So I played OKC. I laid the 2.5 when I got them in. Plus, everyone and their grandmother loved the Portland Trailblazers to pull off the upset because of the scrubs in. And, when everyone's on them, you definitely don't want to be there.
Yep, the classic opposite pick tonight on OKC for sure. All right, quick little break. How about some SGP, same game parlays coming up next?
Philadelphia 76ers, they tried to play two different things. They tried to play contender, and they tried to play protect Joel Embiid. It wasn't doing Joel Embiid any good. And this goes back to what I've talked about numerous times on this network. Why did they let him play in the first place? Why was he on the Olympic team? I mean, we looked at it last year in the playoffs against the Knicks. The damn kid was on one leg.
Betting above the rim, only on SportsGrid.
Anyone that's been to a sporting event, the atmosphere before a game, I think Game Time Decisions has that same exact atmosphere. This is our arena. This is what we do. There is going to be an energy to Game Time Decisions that you will feel night in and night out. The excitement you get when you lock your bets in, when you're figuring out what you want to do, we can zone in on the biggest games each night. I want this to be the place that people come to before the games start so they feel as ready as possible to lock in their cards. We are going to hit every single one of those markets that you need to know about. We're gonna go through every single thing, and I've got a great team behind me that's gonna help me get the job done. There is not gonna be a better place, I promise you, than Game Time Decisions to get that new information, react to it, and be able to then bet accordingly. We will have everything at our disposal, and we will use that to our advantage. I'm Kevin Walsh. Tune into Game Time Decisions from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern on SportsGrid.
The two guys that can do it all.
Too much electricity this morning.
This is a good time. We're having a lot of fun.
I had to do a triple take. Ka-ching! Why? Because of parity.
I didn't mean to offend.
Yeah, it's not going to happen.
Load management is a dirty word.
Let him rip.
You know what? Circumstances provide the results. What?
How do you do this once?
Oh, Donnie, you've got such a good show there.
A network that is booming.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
And welcome back. It is In-Game Live Game Day here on the grid on a Friday. Scott Wetzel, Joe Madden until 10 p.m. Eastern Time, 24 past hour number 1. You know what time it is. SGP Same Game Parlay time. Yes. Been doing well with these to a certain extent anyway. All you really need to do is win one. And we did win our SGP last night. Nice 7.5 to 1 with the Lakers, under Lakers. Of course, we put the black cloud on Jalen Brunson. Sorry, Jalen. But good news is he got us 20 points before he decided to bust his leg. So, cha-ching, on that one. So let's make it 2 in a row, Joe, where we're going to go that Sacramento-San Antonio game that we'll talk about here in a little bit. Won't fool around with laying 6.5. It's a pretty big number, big night, just because De'Aaron Fox, now with San Antonio, is back in town. We'll get to that a little bit more here in a second. But I think Sacramento's going to win the game. That's the main thing. Won't lay the 6.5, but I'll take them on the money line. Going to go with over 233.5. I do like that. I don't think anyone's playing defense in this game in particular. Then we'll go to De'Aaron Fox, right? We'll go to the other side of things. 25 points or more. He's plus 130. He's about a 20, 21, 22. His number's 22.5, but he's shown when he wants to, he can go for 25, and I think he clearly wants to. They wrote him out of town. They blamed him for all the losses. They blamed him for the failed season. They trade him away. I think he's going to come back with a vengeance tonight. I really do. 25 points. He's going to get 2 3-pointers at least at minus 230. And then we'll go 6 assists because he's a big assist guy, obviously, at minus 215. And that bumped it up to almost 7 to 1. So I got Sacramento basic. To me, I got Sacramento pick 'em at 7 to 1, and they're a decent size favorite, plus 690.
I love the revenge angle you're looking at there. I think it's a great way to approach this game, Scott, and that plus money that you're getting on that parlay seems great. So I love it. I'm going to tail that one. I'm going to turn to the ice for my same game parlay. I'm going to look at Utah versus Chicago. Now, I have a 4-legger in this one coming in at plus 865. I'm going to count on this game to start off nice and hot. I do think the Chicago Blackhawks have that more confidence in this game, especially coming off. They lost to the Senators in that last one. It was an OT, but they had that big game versus the LA Kings with Spencer Knight in net. Now, Spencer Knight's back in net tonight, and I'm looking for that confidence to roll into this game versus the Utah Hockey Club. So I'm going to look at the first period over 1.5 goals. I do think both of these teams can put those goals up on the board. While I'm counting on Spencer Knight to have a solid night, Utah has been rolling incredibly hot. They won 7 of their last 10 games. I'm expecting them to put the points on the board tonight. So the over 1.5 goals in the first period will be the first leg. Dylan Guenther has been so strong since returning from injury for the Utah Hockey Club. I'm expecting him to get those shots on goal. We know the Chicago Blackhawks don't provide that resistance defensively and do allow their goaltending to be absolutely peppered out there. So I'm expecting Dylan Guenther to get right around 4 shots. So I'll take him 3+ shots on goal. And then Connor Bedard of Chicago. Connor Bedard has to get on the score sheet. Connor Bedard has been so flat coming out of the break for the Four Nations, and it's been too long. He's due, Scott, and I hate using the word due, but I do expect him to be able to get a goal or an assist. So let's be careful with it. Let's take him for the point tonight. That's coming in at minus 142. And then for Utah, Clayton Keller has just been lights out. Bet this one separately as well. Clayton Keller for 2+ points tonight, coming in at plus 182. I expect a goal. I expect an assist out of him, and for him to roll incredibly hot in this matchup here. So give me the 4-legger plus 865, over 1.5 goals in the first period. Dylan Guenther, 3+ shots on goal. Connor Bedard for a point, and Clayton Keller for 2 points, Scott.
All right, not bad. I like that. Do and you know the other one that we really stay away from. That's value. The two black cloud words we just don't use on weekends, on Saturday and Sundays between 4 and 8. So I got a buddy of mine on the podcast there, and he's really high on this Spencer Knight kid. That's the one that they picked up for first round draft choice. I don't know if you know anything about him, but he played really well his first game. Right, gave up just 1 goal. My Blackhawks buddy, he seems to be really high on this dude. I don't know if you know anything about him or not, Joe, but
I really like
that's going to be a pretty good trade.
Yeah, it's a fantastic trade here. Chicago definitely has found their goalie of the future. He's young. He was the backup goalie in Florida, got a couple games under his belt there, and he's been strong in those games as well as here for Chicago. So I think he lets in a couple goals tonight, but I do think he's definitely the goalie that Chicago has been needing.
All right. College basketball talk. Colby Dan, the College Experience Podcast. Join us next here on the Grid.
Philadelphia 76ers is they tried to play two different things. They tried to play contender, and they tried to play protect Joel Embiid. It wasn't doing Joel Embiid any good. This goes back to what I've talked about numerous times on this network. Why did they let him play in the first place? Why was he on the Olympic team? I mean, we looked at it last year in the playoffs against the Knicks. The damn kid was on one leg.
Betting above the rim, only on SportsGrid.
Anyone that's been to a sporting event, the atmosphere before a game, I think Game Time Decisions has that same exact atmosphere. This is our arena. This is what we do. There is going to be an energy to Game Time Decisions that you will feel night in and night out. The excitement you get when you lock your bets in, when you're figuring out what you want to do, we can zone in on the biggest games each night. I want this to be the place that people come to before the games start so they feel as ready as possible to lock in their cards. We are going to hit every single one of those markets that you need to know about. We're going to go through every single thing, and I've got a great team behind me that's going to help me get the job done. There is not going to be a better place, I promise you, than Game Time Decisions to get that new information, react to it, and be able to then bet accordingly. We will have everything at our disposal, and we will use that to our advantage. I'm Kevin Walsh. Tune into Game Time Decisions from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern on SportsGrid.
The two guys that can do it all.
Too much electricity this morning.
This is a good time. We're having a lot of fun.
I had to do a triple take. Ka-ching! Why? Because of parity.
I didn't mean to offend.
Yeah, it's not going to happen.
Load management is a dirty word.
Let him rip.
You know what? Circumstances provide the results. What?
How do you do this one?
Oh, Donnie, you got such a good show there.
A network that is booming.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
All right, welcome back in Game Live. Game Day here on the grid. Scott and Joe Madden until 10 p.m. Eastern time. Little NHL, little college basketball, little NBA. We were touching on some of the games just to update those real quickly before we go to the college basketball scene. Oklahoma City 24-18. I'm telling you, they're going to win this game. I love you. I wish I had the courage of my own conviction, as the saying goes. I played the over, and that's we're a little behind the eight ball there, Joe. But I should have just taken Oklahoma City lay-in too, because you said the whole world's on Portland. Nobody is playing. No, you got if Alex Caruso is your best player, right? You have no business winning an NBA game. But I'm telling you, you watch them win tonight, or at least be in a position where you can hedge and get a decent 5, 6, 7 point middle when they go up 7 or 8. So OKC by 3 as they close out the first quarter. Minnesota leading Miami 26-22. That line dropped a little bit from 5.5 down to 3.5. And we got your Raptors up 6 against the Utah Jazz. We'll keep everyone posted on that. College basketball, these quirky little league tournaments. My Southern Illinois Salukis this afternoon got eliminated. Their season is done, losing to Drake. The one I really, really like, and it's looking pretty good. I don't want to jinx the Joe. The main game on the board tonight, Purdue at Illinois. Illinois, a 4.5-point favorite. They really need the game a lot more than Purdue. They're both probably getting in, but at 19-11, Illinois, you don't want to screw around too much. You never know what can happen with some of these tournaments and lose some of these automatic bids to teams that win tournaments that they would have gotten a bid. So long story short, Purdue's up 6. They're laying 1.5. Love the over-under. I didn't get why it was so low, and it was at 159.5, and as you see there, it lowered to 158.5. It's like, okay, if you say so, but it's up to 164.5 now. I think this has got 85, 80 at least written all over it. I think both teams are going to score in the 80s tonight. I like the over even at 164.5 if you didn't get in earlier.
Oh, so do I. So we're on the exact same page in this one because we know how strong Purdue is at shooting those threes, right? So we knew Purdue was going to bring that in this matchup. I took it over the 158.5, but I looked at Purdue plus the 4.5. I looked for them to be able to keep it tight and battle this one out. I looked at Fletcher Lawyer to come out nice and strong, be able to go over his 3-pointers in this one. That number was only coming in at 1.5, and he's been so strong at getting those threes on the board. He's averaging 14.1 points per game. So I was expecting a lot out of him, but Illinois is going to be able to get those points, get the points, the field goals on the board tonight as well. So I love it, Scott, to the over. Right now, I wouldn't touch Purdue, though. I grabbed them plus the 4.5. I don't like looking at them laying those points right now. Who do you think at the end of the day wins this? Because I know you like the over. Do you think Illinois gets the win at home? You said they're playing for so much more. Because if you believe that, it's plus 136 right now live.
Yeah. Everyone has these teams every year that just whatever you say just doesn't happen. And that's me with Illinois. I mean, every single time, Joe, I watch them on TV, they look like the best team in college basketball, or at least one of the clear best teams, right? And then I see them, lose games into like Minnesota or, Nebraska. It's like, how did that team lose to these scrub teams? So I don't know. I mean, I would think Illinois would. They're down 8 now. They're getting 2.5. You're not really getting a great number, but I think Illinois plus 108 on the money line. I think they come back and win. Again, 19-11, with 19-12, get it done. They'll probably win a game in the Big Ten postseason tournament. Yeah, probably, but I would think that Illinois would get the win. So on top of the over, I'll take the Illini.
What about the overtime bet in this one, Scott? Overtime coming in at plus 1,300. I know coming into this, it was sitting right around that number. You're the king of overtimes here with this team, with both of these teams really pushing for the win in this one. I could see overtime coming into play. And then if you did have Purdue plus the 4.5, I think it's a great hedging spot with Illinois at plus 116, because I expect it to be that close of a game, maybe a 3-point finish here for Illinois if it's not Purdue getting the win. So I kind of like that hedge.
Yeah, that's not bad. 13. I love the overtime bets. You know that, yeah. So anytime I get a game that should be close, you need a little luck. You certainly do, but it does happen. You'll get games that go to overtime. We've seen it all the time. So 13-1, and that number does come down too. You always talk about hedging or getting the middle or going the other way, with one favorite and then one underdog turns into a favorite, right? So that same thing with the overtime. It's 13-1 now. If this stays a 2, 3, 4 possession game, we'll say 6 points or less, that number will come down. So if you grab the 13-1 now, you get it later on when there's 4 minutes left and overtime is now only 4-1 or 5-1. You got yourself a nice little middle there where you get basically a free bet on overtime. So, and I do think this is going to be a close game all the way, no matter who wins. I mean, I don't think it's going to be a blowout, right?
Yeah, I completely agree. This has to be that tight game. Illinois is now down by 9 points here as Purdue takes that 34-25 lead. So all of the numbers just locked up. We've got 5 minutes left in this first half, Scott. So definitely a tense one for Illinois as they try to get back into this first half. But I do think they'll go on a run here, right? It's 33-25 right now. So we'll see what happens when these lines open back up. But I don't think this is one where Purdue continues to pull away. So look for a tighter game than we're seeing right now.
VCU leads Dayton 49-48. I tell you, I've made a lot of money this year betting against Dayton because they're just not the same Dayton team, especially at home where they once were unbeatable, but they've lost some games or failed to cover a bunch of others, right? So, but I did like them tonight. I must say they were getting 8.5, and then the line went up to 9.5, and I got it at 8.5 naturally. And I don't think they're going to get blown out. They're still a good team. They're not great. So 9 minutes left. They're down 3, 51-48. They're getting 6.5. I still think they even keep it in that. I wouldn't go much lower than that, but I think this is going to be a 1 or 2 possession game. It's been competitive. It's not like it's been one run versus another run. Dayton actually led earlier on, believe it or not, by 7 to 9 points. So I like Dayton plus the 6.5, Joe.
Yeah, and you look at that first half, they were able to win the first half 28-27. And I do think here in this last 8 minutes and 51 seconds left, Scott, you're right. I don't think they get blown out of the water. So if you didn't have a bet, yes, you're not getting the best of the number as they just got some more points on the board. So this is a 51-50 game. Plus 6.5, I definitely think is the right way to go here with actually it's moved to 5.5, Scott. So 5.5, are you comfortable? 6.5, I am. 5.5, it's getting tight. If it goes below 5.5, I wouldn't touch it.
Yeah, getting a little dicey there. As much as you think a team's going to be competitive, and I do, But you always have that you're down 3 points, and with literally 30 seconds left, it's anyone's game, and you have the ball, but you miss. So then you got a foul. Then you get the ball again. You miss again. You got a foul again. And then boom, all of a sudden you lose by 7. And you're like, what the fudge? What happened? I had the ball down 3. I had a chance to tie the game, go to overtime 2 seconds ago. All of a sudden I'm not covering 5.5. So, yeah, that 5.5 gets a little dicey there. It does. So, top of the hour, a decent little game between Memphis at home laying 12.5 against South Florida. Over under there is 153.5. Memphis, neither team is great against the spread, but South Florida is a little worse. Memphis 14-16 against the spread, 16-14 over. South Florida 9-20 against the spread, 19-9 under. So, if you want to buy into the trends, 19-9-1, it would be Memphis laying 12.5 and under 153.5.
I'm really shocked by this line movement in the total, Scott, because I got the under at 151.5. We're seeing 153.5 right now. I would still look to the under. I'm not sure why it's been moving in the other direction. I love what Memphis is able to do defensively, especially on their home court. Now, they did win the first meeting by 15, but I'm looking for South Florida to slow this game down a couple of steps more and be able to cover plus the 12.5. So I'll take South Florida and the under.
All right, 12.5 and 153.5 it is now. Yeah, not every line movement is the right way. That's for sure. So, all right, Colby Dan, more college talk coming up next here on the Grid.
Philadelphia 76ers, they tried to play two different things. They tried to play contender, and they tried to play protect Joel Embiid. It wasn't doing Joel Embiid any good. This goes back to what I've talked about numerous times on this network. Why did they let him play in the first place? Why was he on the Olympic team? I mean, we looked at it last year in the playoffs against the Knicks. The damn kid was on one leg.
Betting above the rim, only on SportsGrid.
Anyone that's been to a sporting event, the atmosphere before a game, I think Game Time Decisions has that same exact atmosphere. This is our arena. This is what we do. There is going to be an energy to Game Time Decisions that you will feel night in and night out. The excitement you get when you lock your bets in, when you're figuring out what you want to do, we can zone in on the biggest games each night. I want this to be the place that people come to before the games start so they feel as ready as possible to lock in their cards. We are going to hit every single one of those markets that you need to know about. We're going to go through every single thing, and I've got a great team behind me that's going to help me get the job done. There is not going to be a better place, I promise you, than Game Time Decisions to get that new information, react to it, and be able to then bet accordingly. We will have everything at our disposal, and we will use that to our advantage. I'm Kevin Walsh. Tune into Game Time Decisions from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern on SportsGrid.
The two guys that can do it all.
Too much electricity this morning.
This is a good time. We're having a lot of fun.
I had to do a triple take. Ka-ching! Why? Because of parity.
I didn't mean to offend.
Yeah, it's not going to happen.
Load management is a dirty word.
Let him rip.
You know what? Circumstances provide the results. What?
How do you do this one?
Oh, Donnie, you got such a good show there.
A network that is booming.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
All right, welcome back in Game Live, Game Day here on the Grid. Scott and Joe Madden, hour number 1. Colby Dant, College Experience Podcast, will join us at the top of the hour with some, obviously, college basketball talk with him. But before we move on to the NBA and the NHL, let me throw one more game at you, Joe. It's a goofy game. It is, but it's going well. So, and I think you're getting a pretty good line. Not exactly sure why you are, but VMI and the Citadel. VMI, you're laying 6.5, or at least you were to start the game. It's in the Southern Conference. They're like a 500 team, 7-11 in conference play, but it's more of an anti-Citadel line. Citadel is 0-18. 0-18 in conference play. We've used them in our opposite picks a couple of times, or gone against them anyway. They're 5-24. 4 of the wins have come against Division II or Division III teams. So they got 1 win over a Division I team all year. They were only getting 6.5 today. I was all over that. VMI leads by 9 at the half, 36-27, and the line is up to 10.5. But that's actually, that's not that bad. It really isn't. Citadel was down like 2 or 3 and showing some life. I'd say okay. But to me, they're not down 9. I think VMI, I figured they would win by double digits. Wouldn't lay much more than 10.5, but like I said, I thought they would win by at least 10, 11, 12, 13 points tonight. So if you need a goofy bet, as we all do, VMI Citadel. Tell your local Louis DeLip you want a line on that game at halftime and see what happens. But give me VMI laying the 10.5.
Okay, I'm going to trust you on that one because definitely not one that made my radar. But I did look at Old Dominion and App State. This one is kicking off right away here, Scott. We've got a total that's climbed as well in the opposite direction to what I was thinking. This total we're seeing live right now at 127.5. I liked it under at the 126.5, so I would jump in. Both of these teams just haven't been shooting the ball well enough for me to roll with the over in this one. I think it's going to be that slower paced game out there, lower scoring. So I've got the under 126.5 right now. Again, live it's 127.5. We have seen movement on that spread as well. Old Dominion was an 8.5 point dog, now 7.5 point dog coming into this one. I do think because it's a lower scoring game, they can keep it tight with App State. I grabbed them plus the 7.5 at -102, Scott.
All right. Checking to see if they played. I'm sure they did. First game they played, or at least the last game they played, was 78-77 over. But the first game they played was 62-43 way under. So, pick your poison. You're right. I will say App State's lost 3 in a row. They're playing their worst ball of the season. So maybe that under is the way to go. I do like generally playing unders in these conference tournament games. Neutral sites, no home crowd behind either team for the most part. Different uniforms or different uniforms, different arenas, different sight lines for both teams. So that generally leads towards under for me. So I don't mind the minus or the 127.5, the under there. So all right, put a couple shekels on that one. NHL 3-0 Winnipeg now over the Devils. Boy, Joe, we talked about all these trades that were made and stuff, and a team to me that cried out for some moves, get some more offense with Jack Hughes being out rest of the season was the Devils. Didn't see anything. They're down 3-0. Their odds have dropped all the way to 32-1. They were one of the favorites, in the top 4 or 5 anyway, and now it's all the way down to 32-1. Not responding to everything that's happened with them. Down 3-0 to Winnipeg. That one's probably in the bag. No Ovechkin goal for Washington, but they did score down 2-1 against Detroit. And you got 1 goal so far. Utah 1-0 over Chicago for your SGP. Not a bad start.
It is a great start. And we also got the assist by Clayton Keller out there on that goal.
Nice.
So he picked up 1 point. We need 1 more point out of him for that parlay. And then in the next 13 minutes, we need someone else to score. In this, it'd be a great day if it could be Connor Bedard or Dylan Guenther. We need those shots on goal as well. So that is looking solid, Scott. But yeah, the New Jersey Devils, I think I put kind of my own black cloud on them because I did think with Jacob Markstrom in net for them, this team was pretty complete coming into the season and could make a run for the playoffs and be able to make a run all the way to the Stanley Cup. So that is not happening with this team, especially with Jack Hughes out of the lineup. They just don't have what it takes. And you're right, they should have made some big moves at the trade deadline. I expected a lot more out of them.
All right. I got to go with the Capitals right now. You got there was like 13 minutes, 60. Let me see what time, because FanDuel's kind of screwing up here. Let me just see. It says end of 2. So they're heading into the third period. They had like 17 minutes. So I thought the third period had started already, but now they say no. So anyway, after 2, Washington down 2-1 to Detroit. Washington's at home. You're getting plus 176. They were the favorites, obviously, coming in. You just need them to score, tie the game, and then you'll get Detroit on the other side at plus money. So you have both teams at plus money. That's the goal. But I like the Capitals plus 176 at home.
Okay, Scott, I'm going to throw this at you because one of our viewers had a 16-1 leg parlay going into today from Hockey Bets yesterday that included the Washington Capitals to just get the win today. What would you be doing if you were him right now with a 16-1 parlay? Would you hedge here in some way with the Detroit Red Wings? Because I thought coming into this, maybe you should hedge just putting a bit of money on the Red Wings straight up on that money line in case this was the situation. But we know the Capitals are always stronger in that third period. They're able to make a push back. Would you be hedging or would you let it ride?
It's 16-1, and this is the last piece. If that's the case, you have to hedge. I've said this many times, Joe. There are advantages and disadvantages of the computer, right? And the disadvantages are many. You got to pay taxes if you actually should win. If you should be fortunate enough to win, you got to pay taxes on that. The VIGs are monstrous for what they were. But the advantages are that you can hedge. You couldn't have that parlay with your local Louis the Lip. I mean, you talk about getting your legs broken. If you want to call up and say you want to bet Detroit when he knows you got a 16-1 parlay resting on Washington, forget about it. So, but the computers allow it. For whatever reason, they allow it. You have to. It's principle. I know people say, hedging is for gardeners and all that goofy stuff, right? No, it's for smart bettors is what it is. You don't have to throw away all your profits or even half your profits, but I would absolutely hedge no matter what the bet was, whether it's $1 or whether it's $100. Absolutely. In-game live, Black Cloud coming up next.
Philadelphia 76ers, they tried to play two different things. They tried to play contender, and they tried to play protect Joel Embiid. It wasn't doing Joel Embiid any good. And this goes back to what I've talked about numerous times on this network. Why did they let him play in the first place? Why was he on the Olympic team? I mean, we looked at it last year in the playoffs against the Knicks. The damn kid was on one leg.
Betting above the rim, only on SportsGrid.
Anyone that's been to a sporting event, the atmosphere before a game, I think Game Time Decisions has that same exact atmosphere. This is our arena. This is what we do. There is going to be an energy to Game Time Decisions that you will feel night in and night out. The excitement you get when you lock your bets in, when you're figuring out what you want to do, we can zone in on the biggest games each night. I want this to be the place that people come to before the games start so they feel as ready as possible to lock in their cards. We are going to hit every single one of those markets that you need to know about. We're going to go through every single thing, and I've got a great team behind me that's going to help me get the job done. There is not going to be a better place, I promise you, than Game Time Decisions to get that new information, react to it, and be able to then bet accordingly. We will have everything at our disposal, and we will use that to our advantage. I'm Kevin Walsh. Tune into Game Time Decisions from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern on SportsGrid.
The two guys that can do it all.
Too much electricity this morning.
This is a good time. We're having a lot of fun.
I had to do a triple take. Ka-ching! Why? Because of parity.
I didn't mean to offend.
Yeah, it's not going to happen.
Load management is a dirty word.
Let him rip.
You know what? Circumstances provide the results. What?
How do you do this one?
Oh, Donnie, you got such a good show there.
A network that is booming.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
All right, welcome back in Game Live, Game Day here on the grid. Scott and Joe closing out hour number one with our Black Cloud Play of the Day. Yes, we joked earlier. Maybe this should be the red cloud because we have been red hot. 4-1 last week, 4-0 this week. I forget what we did the preceding Friday, but at least 8-1 our last 9 picks, award-winning picks. Sponsors calling up. They want to sponsor them. Well, no, they don't. But we're going well. Let's keep it rolling here, right? One with the we're so hot this week, Joe. We needed to survive an overtime game last night with an underplay in the NBA, no less. How many times has a game in the NBA gone to overtime and still went under this year? Twice? 3 times, maybe? One of them was last night with the Knicks and LA Lakers, which actually had a lot to spare. We could have maybe survived a double overtime, to tell you the truth. So 4-0 this week. Let's head to the pick. Shut up, Scott, and give us the play. We're going to go to the ice. The Pittsburgh Penguins out in Las Vegas. They didn't trade any of the players, any of the star players, including Sidney Crosby, obviously. So I'm expecting a little jump out of them, a little reprieve. Although maybe these guys are disappointed. They're sitting in last place. Maybe they're thinking, wow, I was hoping to go to a first-place team, second-place team, playoff team. But bottom line is they stink. 7-19, their last 26 games is Pittsburgh. They've lost 7 of their last 8. They're 4-12, their last 16 road games. They can't win outside of Pittsburgh to save a soul. So let's go with Vegas. They're red hot, 6-1 their last 7, 14-6 their last 20 at home. Not going to lay the monster odds. I won't do that to you. That's unfair because no one's going to lay 2-1. But you can grab Vegas to win in regulation at minus 145. I don't think they're going to need overtime. I wouldn't bet them if I thought the game was going to be so close it's going to go to overtime. So, Joe, give me Vegas regulation win minus 145 against the last place Pittsburgh Panthers, our Black Cloud play of the day. What do you think?
Yeah, the Penguins just been struggling out there. I like where you're going with that because you look at these teams when they match up, the home teams won the last 5. The one kind of sticky thing is the Penguins have won 5 of the last 7 meetings versus the Vegas Golden Knights. But you're right. This is a Vegas team that has so many more strong players on their team than the Pittsburgh Penguins. And you've got to think, while the Penguins should show up tonight, the Vegas should have their way with them. Aiden Hill in net for them. I like Jack Eichel for a big night, Scott. Jack Eichel for 2+ points is coming in at plus 162. He's been able to get 2+ points in his last 2 games. And then looking at Thomas Hertl, I think Thomas Hertl can come out nice and strong. 2+ points for him at plus 320. So we'll see what the Penguins bring, but we saw them last year after that trade deadline. They looked defeated with trades going. Are they going to look defeated with the lack of trades this time, Scott?
Yeah, well, listen, they lost 7 of 8. Like I said, they're playing lousy hockey. They're in last place. That's why I say some of these guys might be a little disappointed they weren't traded. Generally when you're not traded, it's like, oh, you're happy. But I don't know why do people always assume that they don't want to be traded? I know it's a little bit of a hassle, but, you're talking about 23, 24, 25, 26-year-old guys, probably most not even married. It's not like they're going to uplift the whole family. I would think some of these guys would be like, yeah, get me the fudge out of here. You want to trade me to the Florida Panthers? Where do I sign? You want to trade me to Toronto or Tampa Bay or Vegas? Instead, I'm supposed to be happy. I'm on a last-place team playing for nothing again. So, but I do like, I think Vegas. They got a game against the Kings. That's a rivalry game on Saturday, but, that's okay. They're fighting for the number 1 seed. They got 80 points, or at least the number 1 spot in the Pacific Division anyway. So, I like that tonight. I think they get the road win, or the home win. So, get St. Louis and Anaheim. That's another a game that starts at 10 o'clock. Interesting because the Ducks have been playing well. We've talked about that in our weekend shows, right? 8-3, their last 11 at home. They're probably a little too far away to seriously get back into the playoff picture. But, you never know if things go the right way. St. Louis is playing great, 5-1 their last 6. Laying a small price. They've beaten them 15 of their last 20. St. Louis has. Everybody has. This is a different Ducks team. But I think I would take Anaheim plus the 130 at home.
Oh, see, and I'm going to look at the St. Louis Blues. I think they're making a major push. They were not sellers at the trade deadline, which everyone expected. Yep. But the thing was, they came out of the 4 nations so strong. They've been winning, and they have a chance to make the playoffs. Look for them, I think, to play a really strong game, pick up the points, and then probably fall flat in the 3rd game versus the LA Kings in a week tomorrow, Scott.
All right, it could be. It could happen. Like I said, they're playing great, 5-1, their last 6. So, a lot to get to second hour. We got Colby Dan, we got Brady Cannon with God, we got Cam Stewart, a little bit of everything, all coming up in Game Live Game Day.
Philadelphia 76ers, they tried to play two different things. They tried to play contender, and they tried to play protect Joel Embiid. It wasn't doing Joel Embiid any good. And this goes back to what I've talked about numerous times on this network. Why did they let him play in the first place? Why was he on the Olympic team? I mean, we looked at it last year in the playoffs against the Knicks. The damn kid was on one leg.
Betting above the rim, only on SportsGrid.
Anyone that's been to a sporting event, the atmosphere before a game, I think Game Time Decisions has that same exact atmosphere. This is our arena. This is what we do. There is going to be an energy to Game Time Decisions that you will feel night in and night out. The excitement you get when you lock your bets in, when you're figuring out what you want to do, we can zone in on the biggest games each night. I want this to be the place that people come to before the games start so they feel as ready as possible to lock in their cards. We are going to hit every single one of those markets that you need to know about. We're going to go through every single thing, and I've got a great team behind me that's going to help me get the job done. There is not going to be a better place, I promise you, than Game Time Decisions to get that new information, react to it, and be able to then bet accordingly. We will have everything at our disposal, and we will use that to our advantage. I'm Kevin Walsh. Tune into Game Time Decisions from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern on SportsGrid.
The two guys that can do it all.
Too much electricity this morning.
This is a good time. We're having a lot of fun.
I had to do a triple take. Ka-ching! Why? Because of parity.
I didn't mean to offend.
Yeah, it's not going to happen.
Load management is a dirty word.
Let him rip.
You know what? Circumstances provide the results. What?
How do you do this once?
Oh, Donnie, you got such a good show there.
A network that is booming.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
And welcome in. It's in-game live game day. Hour number 2 of our 2-hour extravaganza on this fabulous Friday. Scott Wetzel, Joe Madden in for Dave Sherapan until 10 p.m. Eastern time. We got a little NBA, a little hockey we talked about, some college basketball, which is taking center stage right now. So let's hop right to it with our good buddy, Mr. Colby Dan, who you can listen to on the Sports Gambling Podcast Network. For that matter, on SportsGrid as well, because this is his third straight day joining us here. And Cole, I appreciate it, Cole. You know what? We have you on all the time, and I say, it's the College Experience Podcast, and give out the network. But if someone wanted to listen to your podcast, when is it on? When's it posted? How do we go about it? I do my own podcast, but I don't know how anyone listens. So how does one go about listening to the Sports Gambling Podcast Network and in your show in particular?
Yeah, the college basketball experience, which we also have college football and college baseball. Appreciate you throwing me this bone, but so there's several, any podcast platform, Stitcher, iTunes, Spotify, but also youtube.com/the college experience. You can watch the show. We got uniforms and everything, as they say in Major League, but no, I mean, no, but sportsgamblingpodcast.com also. I mean, we we'll be out in Vegas for March Madness, the opening week. So appreciate you letting me plug that.
Cool. All right, what's on your plate tonight? What do you like?
On my plate tonight is Mountain West action. I love Boise State as they take on Colorado State. I believe it's at 5.5 right now. The graphic says 6. Shop around. You can get a 5.5 right now with Boise State. One of the things I love, this is kind of a bubble game. You got Boise State, a team that is projected as one of the last 2 or 3 in the field, I think, or the first 1 or 2 out. Colorado State won 7 straight. They're starting to play themselves into March Madness territory. Colorado State won at the buzzer in the first one at Fort Collins. Boise State, to me, is a great play tonight. Lay the points. It's senior night, and it's a very old team, the oldest team in the Mountain West coming into the conference. To me, I love this spot. I think they're going to win by 9-10 points, maybe even more. So load up on the Broncos there. And then another one, UNLV's at the Pit in Las Vegas taking on New Mexico. I like UNLV with the points. New Mexico can't. They already clinched the top seed in the Mountain West, won the regular season championship. They're not really playing for anything. It's a big number. UNLV's been hot late.
Did you do anything with this matchup between Purdue and Illinois? We've got halftime here. Purdue is up. They were a 4.5-point dog coming in, up 42-40. We had a total of 158.5. It's now at 167.5. Both Scott and I like this one to the over, but is this total now getting too high?
Probably. I think it matters on the Illini and the way they shoot the three. I didn't take a side or a total on this game. I took the Purdue side. I thought Purdue with the points was the play, and mainly just because Illinois has been so inconsistent throughout this season, off 2 20-point wins, and slower teams kind of mess with them. They lost to Tennessee, they lost to Wisconsin, they lost to Sparty. So teams that Purdue's always like in the bottom 100 in pace. So they slow them down. They make you, really honor your possessions. And Illinois is a very young team. So my logic was just take Purdue in the points there. But right now, yeah, I think that number, in game right now, it's 166.5. I think I would go from the under at this point. Specifically knowing that the Illini are 4 from 15 from 3. So, yeah.
I got a game starting here in a couple seconds. Memphis, you mentioned it earlier, but I'll just throw it out there. Any thoughts, even if it's just stay away? Memphis laying 12.5 against South Florida, over under 153.5.
Yeah, I didn't personally bet this game, but I did take, we pick every game on my show. I took South Florida in the points. South Florida's been a mess. They had a tragedy right before the season with their head coach, dying while he was having just a routine surgery. And the team's kind of been everywhere since. But Memphis has already clinched. They've won the AAC regular season. So I don't know what they do here. I know it's senior night, but, they're going to be playing a lot more throughout this season, knowing that they're the 1 seed in the AAC tournament and going to be in the NCAA tournament. So I took South Florida. I don't like laying a big number with Memphis because traditionally I feel like they kind of mess around, play with their food with a lot of these opponents. But I stayed away just because South Florida's been a mystery team this year with everything that's happened there in Tampa.
Looking at the matchup between North Dakota and South Dakota State, do you trust North Dakota's defense enough to keep this within the number? They're grabbing 7.5 on the road, or is this a play that we should be looking at South Dakota State?
I think it's a play you're looking at South Dakota State. This is the tournament for the Summit League. I bet this one myself here. North Dakota beat them just earlier this month. And this one, first off, the Summit League tournament is held in Sioux Falls, South Dakota. So I expect it to be a Jackrabbit crowd. And they've been the pride of this conference really over the past decade. So you look at them at home, they've been fantastic at home this year, 13-1. Now I know this isn't technically their home stadium, but they'll have the crowd. Meanwhile, North Dakota State lost 2 straight, just 3 of their last 10. I think South Dakota State is going to lay it on them. I think they win by double digits.
Surprised with any of the finals? It looks like Dayton's going to knock off VCU, leading 76-71 with 30 seconds left. Maybe I shouldn't assume that anything can happen, but still, Dayton almost 9.5 point road underdogs, maybe winning outright.
Yeah, no, I took Dayton, and I thought the same logic really with the South Florida game. VCU had already clinched. They already clinched that 1 seed, so it's a tricky spot. It's like New Mexico tonight. It's like, how much should we really expect them to be going all in? They've partied, knowing that they got the 1 seed. It just also, I wonder if they try to manage minutes. If you have a guy who's questionable, do you give him the night off? So, I took Dayton. They were the way more desperate team. I took them with the points. I didn't play the money line, but it doesn't surprise me much knowing that Anthony Grant, their former head coach, used to be at VCU, and they have similar styles to me the way they play it. But Yeah, I mean, we were probably going to get a rematch. When the A-10 tournament's released, I think these will be the top two favorites to win that conference. VCU, no surprise, but Dayton being the 3 seed might be a little bit of a shock.
What about the matchup here between Pepperdine and Portland? We've got Portland leading this one 8-4 currently. This total now up to 151.5. Is there any plays that you played in this?
Yes. Look, Portland swept Pepperdine and won by 20 each spot in Portland and then in Malibu where Pepperdine's located. And the line was 1.5. I was puzzled from the start, so I bet Pepperdine blindly. I mean, Pepperdine to me is not a very good basketball team. They have a couple different scoring options, but the line just didn't make any sense to me. And really, if you've watched a lot of these games over the past couple of days where the lines didn't make sense, they seem to be falling on the team that it doesn't make sense to be favored for, like Morgan State last night. Like Coppin State against Morgan State last night. So I took Pepperdine. They've lost 5 straight. I don't know, like you lose by 20 each game. I thought the line would have been 12.5, 13.5. Even, Ken Palm agrees with me. So Pepperdine was my angle here.
Real quickly, I have many systems, Colby, including bet against any coach who goes on the Tonight Show. What is Rick Pitino doing? I mean, is that not crazy? I love Marquette laying only 2.5 against St. John's and Pitino.
We're on the same page here, man. You're on the Tonight Show cutting jokes. You've already clinched, much like some of the teams we just mentioned, all over Marquette, who's fighting for that 3 seed.
Yeah, great job. Colby, Dan, as always, appreciate it. We'll do it again soon, Cole. Thanks.
So my team didn't win this weekend, but I still did with this app that's taking over the game. Sports Millions Pick'em lets you make quick and easy predictions. Pick your favorite players, go higher or lower, and you can still win big even if your team loses. Plus, the multiplier is insane. With just a few picks, you can win big money. So get on it. They've got a welcome bonus to help you start off your winning streak.
Anyone that's been to a sporting event, the atmosphere before a game, I think Game Time Decisions has that same exact atmosphere. This is our arena. This is what we do. There is going to be an energy to Game Time Decisions that you will feel night in and night out. The excitement you get when you lock your bets in, when you're figuring out what you want to do, we can zone in on the biggest games each night. I want this to be the place that people come to before the games start so they feel as ready as possible to lock in their cards. We are going to hit every single one of those markets that you need to know about. We're going to go through every single thing, and I've got a great team behind me that's going to help me get the job done. There is not going to be a better place, I promise you, than Game Time Decisions to get that new information, react to it, and be able to then bet accordingly. We will have everything at our disposal, and we will use that to our advantage. I'm Kevin Walsh. Tune into Game Time Decisions from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern on SportsGrid.
Two guys that can do it all.
Too much electricity this morning.
This is a good time. We're having a lot of fun.
I had to do a triple take. Ka-ching! Why? Because of parity.
I didn't mean to offend.
Yeah, it's not going to happen.
Load management is a dirty word.
Let him rip.
You know what? Circumstances provide the results. What?
How do you do this once?
Oh, Donnie, you got such a good show there.
A network that is booming.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
welcome back. It is In-Game Live, Game Day here on the Grid. Thanks again, Colby Dan, for joining us, as he does from time to time, the College Basketball Experience podcast. Threw a little basketball in there. Let's put the baskets aside, talk a little golf, maybe a little football here as well with our Vegas resident, Mr. Brady Cannon, who you see and hear all the time here on the Grid. Brady, before we get to golf, I know it's only been a few hours, but are the natives happy? Do you think they'll be happy with the apparent trade of Geno Smith to the Las Vegas Raiders for a third-round pick?
I know, like me, I think they're probably a little bit surprised. And I tell you what, Scott, I kind of like the move. I think it's a good little gap filler here for a year or two. I think we all know that this is not an especially strong draft for quarterbacks. So the Raiders are probably going to wait and see what they can do down the road, because they do have to bring a franchise player in. But I think this is a pretty good little piece. And maybe they still draft Shadur Sanders and let him learn under Geno for a couple of years. I would like that scenario as well. I was looking at some stats, and I've seen it on social media. Geno Smith really flourishes indoors. He's a much better player, under the roof. And of course, that's what we have here at Allegiant Stadium. The Raiders do have some offensive weapons for sure. The offensive line last year was probably just about dead average. I think they can improve upon that and protect him a little bit better. Their run blocking was not good. They had no running game whatsoever. They're going to have to improve upon that. And we know Pete Carroll loves to run the ball, so I imagine that'll be a point of emphasis. But I think this is okay. I like the moves the Raiders have done so far in the offseason. Chip Kelly, Pete Carroll, Tom Brady really taking a role from an ownership standpoint, bringing in the new GM. And I think it was a pretty, savvy move as well. They got this third-round pick from the Jets when Devontae Adams went over there, and then they just used it to get Geno, and they still have a third-round pick in the upcoming draft. So they really didn't give up too much to get this guy in town.
How do you think Max Crosby is going to be feeling? Because he's been very vocal that he just wants to win. He's got paid by the Raiders, and he was saying he loves Aiden O'Connell, but he wants to get paid. They're looking for that quarterback, and now we have the answer. It is Geno Smith. Do you think he's going to be happy with that move?
Well, if his Twitter account is any indication, his reaction was, let's effing go. Yeah, he reacted like he was really fired up about this move. I was looking at the timeline there, and I saw Adam Schefter, and right next to that was Max Crosby. So, the one thing about Pete Carroll, the guy has been a fantastic coach basically for decades, wherever he's gone. And I think one thing that is really his forte is kind of that rah-rah cheerleader and get the troops fired up. And I think he'll be able to do that, whether it's Max Crosby or Geno Smith or Brock Bowers. I think he's going to have that team fired up. And that's one thing. I think that's probably what Tom Brady really was focused on in doing this offseason, was changing the culture in that building. And Pete Carroll may be a perfect fit to do exactly that.
Yeah, it's just interesting. A couple of things. Sam Darnold is out there. I guess they're not going after him. Russell Wilson, another former quarterback. I guess he had to choose between former quarterbacks. Kirk Cousins, I would think, would be available. Danny Nichols, as I like to call him, is out there. And they chose a guy that's on the last year of his contract. So it's kind of like, you're damned if you do, damned if you don't. What if he does well? Do you re-sign him? Kind of like what Darnold did with Minnesota. You're kind of in purgatory there. If he does lousy, then what was the point? It's just interesting to see, what they end up doing with him, knowing he's got 1 year left on his contract. But let's turn attention to golf. Arnold Palmer Invitational, 2 rounds in the book. Shane Lowry with the 2-shot lead. Your thoughts, Brady?
I'm kicking myself because I bet on Lowry last week, and he did okay. He finished top 20, cashed a top 20 ticket for me. But we've got an elevated class here, a step up in class, with a signature status field. The Schefflers and the Morikawas and the Rorys of the world are here this week. They were not last. And he's done well at this golf tournament in the past, but I just didn't expect him to be in the position he's in right now. And I tell you what, I'm not feeling that he's going to be able to get it done. It's been so long since we've seen Shane Lowry win. He's a fantastic player. He plays the Florida swing better than really anybody, but we just haven't seen him close the deal. He finished third here last year, and I wouldn't be surprised by another third place finish. He's striping the irons right now. He's number one in this field in strokes gained approach, but there's only 50-some players left in this field, and he is 40th for strokes gained off the tee. So he's getting a little loosey-goosey off the tee, and this golf course is so hard. I mean, look at the big names that missed the cut that shot 80 today. This is the hardest test of golf we have seen all year, and it is really putting a hurting. I mean, Scotty Scheffler, of all people, is only 1 under par and 7 back off the lead, So if I was going to get involved at this point, I have Justin Thomas, a pre-tournament ticket on him, and I believe he is still live. Justin Thomas and Colin Morikawa are maybe hitting the ball better than anybody in this field. They just can't make a putt, and putting is very volatile. So if their putter heats up over the weekend, I think we still have a shot with Thomas. If I was going to get involved right now, I might take a look at Thomas at 16-1, Morikawa at 6-1, and then the guy sitting there in second, Wyndham Clark, who finished runner-up last year, and his game looks pretty good right now. Lowry, has to show me. We haven't seen him win in a long time, and I don't know if it's going to happen this week. It's hard to convince yourself that it's going to happen when you haven't seen it happen in a while.
So if you're not seeing him win this, do you still think Shane Lowry can finish in the top 5, a top 10, or do you think he's really going to fall flat over the next couple of days?
I don't think he's going to totally fall flat, Joe. One thing that scares me a little bit is Shane Lowry has been an awful putter, off to an awful season putting this year, yet he's been red hot for a couple days. So I could see that putter regressing a bit here over the next couple days. I think a top 5 bet is solid. I don't think he's going to fall off a cliff. I just don't think he's going to win.
Brady, great job as always. I'm going to take a little flyer on Scotty Scheffler at 11-1. Anytime I can get him at 11-1, I'm grabbing it. Brady, we'll do it again too. Thanks, man.
Philadelphia 76ers, they tried to play 2 different things. They tried to play contender, and they tried to play protect Joel Embiid. It wasn't doing Joel Embiid any good. This goes back to what I've talked about numerous times on this network. Why did they let him play in the first place? Why was he on the Olympic team? I mean, we looked at it last year in the playoffs against the Knicks. The damn kid was on one leg.
Betting above the rim, only on SportsGrid.
Anyone that's been to a sporting event, the atmosphere before a game, I think Game Time Decisions has that same exact atmosphere. This is our arena. This is what we do. There is going to be an energy to Game Time Decisions that you will feel night in and night out. The excitement you get when you lock your bets in, when you're figuring out what you want to do, we can zone in on the biggest games each night. I want this to be the place that people come to before the games start so they feel as ready as possible to lock in their cards. We are going to hit every single one of those markets that you need to know about. We're going to go through every single thing, and I've got a great team behind me that's going to help me get the job done. There is not going to be a better place, I promise you, than Game Time Decisions to get that new information, react to it, and be able to then bet accordingly. We will have everything at our disposal, and we will use that to our advantage. I'm Kevin Walsh. Tune into Game Time Decisions from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern on SportsGrid.
The 2 guys that can do it all.
Too much electricity this morning.
This is a good time. We're having a lot of fun.
I had to do a triple take. Ka-ching! Why? Because of parity.
I didn't mean to offend.
Yeah, it's not going to happen.
Load management is a dirty word.
Let him rip.
You know what? Circumstances provide the results. What?
How do you do this one?
Oh, Donnie, you got such a good show there.
A network that is booming.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
All right, welcome back in Game Live. Game Day here on the grid. Me and Joe Madden. Thanks again to Brady Ken, who joins us all the time. You see him all the time here on the grid. You can watch him tomorrow night. As a matter of fact, after Joe and I's show from 4 to 8, we're on. Then he's on from 8 to 11 with Adam Kaufman. But just to pick up real quickly, Joe, with the quarterback situation there with Geno. I like Geno. I do. He's pretty good. He's just. I think Seattle just made a decision. We're tired of living in purgatory. He's going to get us maybe to the playoffs. We're going to lose in the first round, and we're not going to get a high draft choice, and we're going to be stuck with just another 10-7 maybe 9-8 year. I just don't get Vegas's angle because he does have 1 year left on his contract. I mean. If he does great, kind of like, as I mentioned to Brady, if he pulls a Sam Darnold and he does great, do you give him $40 million a year and really commit to him? If he doesn't, then what was the point? You gave up a third-round draft choice. It's kind of weird drafting or trading for a guy because if you do go 9-8, 10-7, which I don't think they will, and I'm not quite as high on Las Vegas's weapons as Brady was, but it's just living in purgatory. Like I said, you're going to screw yourself the following year when it comes to draft choice wise. So I don't really like myself.
No, and I don't either. As a Chargers fan, though, I should be excited, though, because bringing in Geno, I do think it's the same thing as what they had last year with Baker. I just don't see that big step up in quarterbacks, and I think they're still going to struggle offensively to get that ball moving. So Aiden O'Connell, he's not the answer either. He's had some solid passes into really tight windows, but then he's thrown those interceptions. And that was one thing we were talking about in the green room and in the break is Geno Smith in the red zone. You can't trust him to throw that ball. It's got to be a running play because he turns that ball over constantly, Scott. Like, you can count on that.
Yeah, I mean, the bets I lost this past year with him and then 2 years ago, him throwing interceptions in the red zone, man, he's just some of the decisions he makes are just head scratching. So, one decision I kind of regret this Illinois Purdue game started at 8:00 because. Man, had that been 9 o'clock, that would have been our Black Cloud play of the day, without a shadow of a doubt. This game's going to sail past the number. 59-51, 13 minutes left. They just posted a 169. They're down 168.5. It's not that much more than the 158.5 it was, but that was just a bad number, and I still think it's a bad number. We said we would take it again at 164.5. If you did, you're sitting pretty. Would I take it now at 169.5? They have 110 points, so you need 60 points in 12.5 minutes. I don't know if I would push it, especially if I had the first two bets, but I don't think I wouldn't bet the under. That's for sure. It's one of those where I might not bet the over, but I'm definitely not betting the under with these two teams. And you got the team that really wants to run and gun, Joe, Illinois trailing. So they want to kind of continue to pick up the pace here.
Oh, absolutely. And you've seen that overtime bet go from plus 1,300 to plus 1,100. I still think overtime is in play. It's only an 8-point game right now. And Illinois at this position at plus 196 on the money line is kind of interesting because you look at Purdue. They were a 4.5-point dog coming into this. They're now 4.5-point favorite. I think this is a back and forth game. And the one thing I do think is the strongest bet is just looking at that one to go over the 180. Or 168.5, not 186.5, Scott, but the 168.5. I think we're going to continue to see the points come. I know it's only 12 minutes, but I don't think we're going to see these teams slow down out there, especially like you said, Illinois is going to look to push the pace.
Yeah, and you're in a position to foul too. Where Illinois, if it stays this way, you're going to be fouling. You're going to get some cheap points that way. So, speaking of overtime, it does happen. Northern Illinois. At 1-16, oh, by the way, in MAC play, 5-25 overall is actually tied with Central Michigan, which is 7-10. It's not like they're great, but they're better than 1-16. Tied at 74 in overtime. Interesting. We gave out VMI. I mentioned that they were laying 10.5, and I loved them at 6.5 to start the game, and I thought we were getting a good price at halftime. They're up 20, 70-50. The Citadel is just atrocious. I mean, just 0-18. We talked about it in conference play. That was too easy for my book. Good little start for South Florida. 18 all, Joe, against Memphis.
Yeah, that's a nice start. Not a nice start between Old Dominion and App State for that total, Scott. I'm playing an under 128.5. It's now 140.5. Wow. Fast start there.
Yeah. That's all right. And we've seen good starts, turn into this slow game. We're coming up in Game Live.
Philadelphia 76ers, they tried to play two different things. They tried to play contender, and they tried to play protect Joel Embiid. It wasn't doing Joel Embiid any good. This goes back to what I've talked about numerous times on this network. Why did they let him play in the first place? Why was he on the Olympic team? I mean, we looked at it last year in the playoffs against the Knicks. The damn kid was on one leg.
Betting above the rim. Only on SportsGrid.
Anyone that's been to a sporting event, the atmosphere before a game, I think Game Time Decisions has that same exact atmosphere. This is our arena. This is what we do. There is going to be an energy to Game Time Decisions that you will feel night in and night out. The excitement you get when you lock your bets in, when you're figuring out what you want to do, we can zone in on the biggest games each night. I want this to be the place that people come to before the games start so they feel as ready as possible to lock in their cards. We are going to hit every single one of those markets that you need to know about. We're going to go through every single thing, and I've got a great team behind me that's going to help me get the job done. There is not going to be a better place, I promise you, than Game Time Decisions to get that new information, react to it, and be able to then bet accordingly. We will have everything at our disposal, and we will use that to our advantage. I'm Kevin Walsh. Tune into Game Time Decisions from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern on SportsGrid.
The two guys that can do it all.
Too much electricity this morning.
This is a good time. We're having a lot of fun.
I had to do a triple take. Ka-ching! Why? Because of parity.
I didn't mean to offend.
Yeah, it's not going to happen.
Load management is a dirty word.
Let him rip.
You know what? Circumstances provide the results. What?
How do you do this one?
Oh, Donnie, you got such a good show there.
A network that is booming.
The Early Line. Only on SportsGrid.
And welcome back in Game Live, Game Day here on the grid. Scott and Joe Madden until 10 p.m. Eastern Time. Usually this is where we do our opposite pick segment, but unfortunately, I didn't have a chance to put it together. I had to do my taxes. I know we can make all kind of goofy excuses, but I know, right? Hey, very nice. You just show a little imagination. Yeah, that my expense. Thank you. But, what should have been an hour took like 5 hours. I mean, I left my house at 1 o'clock. I didn't get home until 6. And then you had to get ready for the show and everything else. And I just, it's not like college football, Joe, where you have the lines all week. So not only don't you have the lines for tomorrow's games, I don't even know some of the matchups because it's all conference tournament and it all determines who wins today. So, but I will post it on the website, oppositepicks.com. I'll do it after the show once the lines are out. So if you want them for the picks, go to oppositepicks.com, hit the little icon for opposite picks, and boom, there it goes. That said, Joe, have you seen the score in the NBA? I love this stuff. I really do. Oklahoma City versus Portland, right? You and I could be suiting up for OKC tonight. Everybody who's anybody is out. They're leading by 13, 74-61. How about that?
Right? Everyone was on the angle. OKC's playing no one. The Portland Trailblazers plus money. They were rolling with them, Scott. It was a perfect recipe for OKC to come out nice and strong. So, yeah, they're like 10.5 points live right now, which is just crazy. I hope people jumped in. I really hope a lot of people jumped in on them before. So, because beautiful game here. It's still third quarter, though. Do you have any faith in Portland to come back? I don't.
No, I know, and they've been playing well. I know it's Portland, people will say, but they've actually played real well with 15-6, 15-7, 14-7, something like that. The last 20-plus games, gotten themselves, back semi into the playoff picture. So great against the spread. But no, come crunch time, things may, tighten up a little bit. 10.5. If I had OKC minus the 2.5, I'd probably take a little nibble on Portland. You know what? I honestly would do. I would take Portland plus 750 on the money line. If I'm gonna win $1 on OKC laying 2, I'll take 20 cents and put it on Portland money line, taking my chances they don't lose by 1 and lose both bets. So that's probably what I would do, just because I don't have that much faith. I took the over. I'm going to need some points. We're at 216.5 on that one, but still, it's impressive. You think you know these things. Old school, they would have taken that game off the board, Joe. They wouldn't have posted any lines. Too many star players are out there, just no lines on it. But nowadays, man, they'll put lines on anything. It is so rare when you don't get a line on a game, no matter who's playing, who's not playing. So
it really is.
A bit of a dog fight with Charlotte up only 16 seconds left, 114-110.
Wow, I'm shocked Cleveland isn't up more in that one. But you know what I'm really shocked by? The Raptors. Look at the Raptors over the Jazz right now, 101-89. I didn't want to lay the 6.5 with them. I didn't want to lay even 4.5 with the Toronto Raptors, really. And they're playing strong. We're seeing a spread now of 11.5. I would take the over 235.5 before I laid those kind of points with the Raptors. I just don't trust them enough here, Scott. And then the Memphis Grizzlies have got it into a tighter number here with the Dallas Mavericks at the half. They were struggling, but we are seeing the Mavs only leading by 3 points right now. It was just tied up seconds ago. It's 103-100. What do you think of that one? That total 243.5, Scott.
Yeah, and there's another example, right, of a team don't have their star players. Obviously traded Luka, Kyrie now being out, and the whole world's probably betting the under, and they got 103 points on the board and in their early fourth quarter. And the over-under is 242, 243.5. So I still would think Memphis would come back and win. But they, as we talked earlier, they have been struggling. It's just a weird game. They're really kind of a stay-away game. If anything, the over. But 243.5, that's a lot of points in 8 minutes. 40 points. Yeah, I don't like that. Two bad teams. Well, Memphis is good, but just playing poorly. So,
are we getting overtime though? That's the question. This is a one basket 3-pointer game, right? So I'm looking at overtime here to see if we can get it. The books are still plus 1,100. We're still getting a ton of plus money on the overtime bet. What do you think, Scott?
Yeah.
Worth a couple of shekels, like you like to say?
Yeah. Anytime I can get a number over 10-1, it's a close game. And again, they do pull those overtime bets off with about 3-4 minutes left. So don't wait too long. If you want to take the 11-1 now and then take the no, at -5 or 6-1 if it gets that far down. So, but yeah, it's been pretty much a close game all the way through. The only thing with the NBA teams is, down 2, they're going to hoist a 3. It really does need to be the perfect storm for the game to go to overtime. Any thought of being down 2, open layup and send the game to overtime? Yeah, not in the NBA. It's like, let's get out of here. So, Minnesota leads Miami 70s. Yeah, exactly. It's a Friday night. You think I want to go to overtime? What do you? I'm in Dallas. The team stinks. We're trying to lose. No, we don't want to go to overtime. Hoist up a 3 from half court. 63-60 Purdue over Illinois. Just keep the points coming, boys. 9.5 minutes left. We're at 168.5. Just keep those points coming, and we'll be in good position. Purdue now is laying 1.5. Memphis down 3. Colby said he liked South Florida early on. 5 minutes left first half. 25-22. Not bad there. How does your I don't want to bring it up, but we have to be fair. How'd your under go with who was it? You like the under 127.5? Old Dominion. I don't see
Old
that.
Dominion. It's looking awful, Scott. It's still up there with Old Dominion. It's now at 139.5, that live total, but I had it at 128.5 to the under. It's 27-27 game right now. We got 5 minutes left in the first half. These teams are actually shooting that ball so much stronger than we have seen. So at 138.5, it got all the way up to 141.5. I would have loved to have taken it under there again, because I still do think at some point we're going to see those baskets start to miss. But 137.5 now is where that number's dropped to, and now up to 140.5. 140.5, I'll take it to the under, Scott. If it goes any lower than that, like 135.5, I'm scared to jump back in on the under at that point. But at 140.5, I'll jump on that under.
Yeah. In a close game too. That's a lot of points for a game that was at 126.5, 127.5, 13, 14 point jump. At 140.5, you might not get the 126, 127.5 anymore, but 140.5, you figure to get. What do you got? 56 points, 4.5 minutes left. Yeah. You'll be right around 70, at halftime, about halfway there, but you got to figure it'll, regress back to the slower pace game that we thought it would be to begin with. So I got a feeling Northern Illinois upset to Central Michigan. Not the biggest upset in the world, except I had Northern Illinois in a parlay money line, or I had Central Michigan rather as part of one of my goofy 6-team money line parlays. I tell you, there's always one team that loses. There's just always one big favorite that loses, and it looks like it's going to be Central Michigan tonight. Fudge.
Yeah, because I'm seeing 83-81 posted for overtime with everything locked. So that means they're in overtime, right? And the overtime's finished 83-81, because you can't go to overtime when it's a 2-point difference.
Yeah. That's what I'm thinking. Let me go to my other scoreboard here and see. Usually when they don't give, although the one scoreboard says double overtime, 83-81. I don't think so. I think it's over.
Yeah,
although it says Central Michigan timeout. Yeah, I don't. Yeah, well, let's see what I got. Like a 1 out of 10 chance that the scoreboards are all wrong. Maybe it's tied at 81. Maybe we're going to double overtime. There's a chance. There's a chance. End of overtime, though.
Oh,
80,
man.
81 is the final.
Didn't last long.
Wow. All right, Cam Stewart coming up next.
Philadelphia 76ers, they tried to play two different things. They tried to play contender, and they tried to play protect Joel Embiid. It wasn't doing Joel Embiid any good. And this goes back to what I've talked about numerous times on this network. Why did they let him play in the first place? Why was he on the Olympic team? I mean, we looked at it last year in the playoffs against the Knicks. The damn kid was on one leg.
Betting above the rim, only on SportsGrid.
Anyone that's been to a sporting event, the atmosphere before a game, I think Game Time Decisions has that same exact atmosphere. This is our arena. This is what we do. There is going to be an energy to Game Time Decisions that you will feel night in and night out. The excitement you get when you lock your bets in, when you're figuring out what you want to do, we can zone in on the biggest games each night. I want this to be the place that people come to before the games start so they feel as ready as possible to lock in their cards. We are going to hit every single one of those markets that you need to know about. We're going to go through every single thing, and I've got a great team behind me that's going to help me get the job done. There is not going to be a better place, I promise you, than Game Time Decisions to get that new information, react to it, and be able to then bet accordingly. We will have everything at our disposal, and we will use that to our advantage. I'm Kevin Walsh. Tune into Game Time Decisions from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern on SportsGrid.
The two guys that can do it all.
Too much electricity this morning.
This is a good time. We're having a lot of fun.
I had to do a triple take. Ka-ching! Why? Because of parity.
I didn't mean to offend.
Yeah, it's not going to happen.
Load management is a dirty word.
Let him rip.
You know what? Circumstances provide the results. What?
How do you do this one?
Oh, Donnie, you got such a good show there.
A network that is booming.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
All right, welcome back in Game Live, Game Day here on the grid. Scott and Joe Madden for another 15, 20 minutes. Cam Stewart, Gabe Morency, top of the hour. Cam joins us now, and Cam, walk me off the ledge. Here we go. It's been a blessing in disguise, but I'm all set to hit that button. Shane Lowry, 4-1 cash out. Should I hit it? For almost 5-1. 5-1. I know he's 50-1 to win it all, but what are the chances? I'm getting 5-1. Any other bet, you'd say hit. Should I do it?
No. Can we wait till Saturday's round and see what happens going into Sunday, where you might get?
He's got to hit every water shot, every bunker in the world tomorrow. I know. I got to log on. Is going to be 15 over par.
You know what, Scott? I got to tell you. I love you. You're like, we're like an uncle, dad, whatever, brothers. I don't know what the hell it is. You can do whatever the hell you want with that cash out button. Mine's not being touched. I don't want to get anywhere near it. I'm going to tell you something, Scott, for the first time in Joe. I got 3 golf tournaments. I'm leading in every friggin' continent for the first. I got Neergaard Peterson in the Puerto Rico Open. I got Sean, don't call me Chuck Norris on the European Tour. And my boy, top of the morning to you, Shane Lowry. Scott, don't hit the button. You can text me. We'll talk. Hey, you know what? It's your money. You do whatever the hell you want to do. But if you walk into my sports book and you have a huge number, you go, this guy wants 5-1. Sure. No, they got to do better for you. That's not enough. Sorry. Not enough.
I did think it would be more since he's got the lead. But go ahead.
Yeah, you're right. It's something bad's gonna happen on Sunday, but just let's just go through one more day of this stuff. Any live stuff we got going on in college? I got Portland. That's going well. Looking at some other stuff later on tonight. You know what, guys? I'm gonna take a shot tonight, Joe. I know you're like underdogs as well, like me. Give me a shot with the San Antonio Spurs plus 5.5 against Sacramento. Sacramento, they're decent, but I like the way the Spurs are playing right now. I will take that dog and pooch at plus 5.5. Sprinkle on the money line at plus 210. We got some late night hockey action. Interesting stuff. What are we going to do with these games? The Ducks are going to be a dog for me. I think they're in a nice little spot. They've been playing really, really good hockey. They lost to Vancouver by 1. They smoked the Oilers. I know they're kind of coming home, but that number, the Blues, Colton Parayko is hurt for 6 weeks. That's devastating. I'm going to take a shot with the Ducks as a nice little pooch too. Minnesota, Vancouver. How about this one, Joe? Game goes to overtime. I could see a very, very tight hockey game between Vancouver and Minnesota, and I will take Vegas in regulation and minus 1.5. They will be parlay pieces as well.
Cam, who do you think won at the trade deadline there in the NHL?
Dallas got Rantanen. That's pretty nice. Florida did well. They get, you know what I mean? They just keep on building. I think it's a great move for them. I was looking at the Leafs going, we did okay. We got Lawton. It's all right. I wanted Nelson. You get Lawton. It's just that's just the way it goes. But these guys are just $1 million under the cap, Joe. But, interesting stuff. And Gabe brought up a good point a long time ago. It's amazing to me, some of these hockey players, you think they want to play in Canadian locations, Scott, and Joe, you guys know they like to go to states where there's no tax. Those teams have an advantage over the rest of the league, and it's something I think we need to consider moving down the line. I get it; you're a human being. You can do whatever the hell you want. You can live with wherever you want. You can date whoever you want. But the thing is, it's also a disrespect to the other teams. It's making it very hard for them to do business. But anyway, I don't run the NHL. I'm not in Gary's boardroom, but I was kind of happy with what the Leafs did. I really wanted a little bit more, but Joe, I'm used to disappointment, so it's just par for the course. What are we going to do?
I will say this, they may not pay federal taxes, but they do have to pay state taxes. Every ball player, their accounts must make $1 million. But you have to pay
here in Canada. You know what taxes we pay? We pay everything.
Country
exactly.
Tax,
provincial tax. We're taxed as Joe. They take 52% of your paycheck. It's not even the same realm of possibilities. Just the facts, Wetzel. Yeah, well, that could be an over exaggeration. What do you say, Joe? 45%? It's high.
It feels like, you add all the taxes up that you have to then go pay for everything after your taxed money, and it's insane. It really is.
Yeah. In New York is that kind of thing. You have to pay city tax, state tax, but
New York is a lot like Canada in many ways, Scott. The way it's run and the amount of tax, like obviously way more people and such, but they run their politics are kind of similar with the taxes. They get absolutely hammered too, just like we do. So, I don't know how you guys are thinking about some of these late night college games. Anything on the board here? I'm going to take a look. I know I'm taking San Antonio. The hockey board looks pretty juicy to me tonight. I know Gabe will have some picks too when we do the show at the top of the hour at 10 o'clock. But golf's going really well right now, and I don't want to jinx anything with like screwing away money on like bad games.
All right, how about this? I'm a little afraid now because it's like on public, but De'Aaron Fox back to Sacramento for the first time. Are we not playing De'Aaron Fox over props? I mean, I love that angle because he got ran out of town. Like they blamed him for everything. Coach gets fired, the whole kit and caboodle. I'm thinking he's going back there tonight, Cam, with a major chip on his shoulder.
I like your style, Scott. I kind of agree with that, and that's the thing. He's been good just against regular teams. And when that guy plays angry, he's very, very effective. I think that's a really good look by you. College basketball, late night, I'm looking at some stuff. Colorado State might be a dog, but I don't know. I don't want to go against Boise. It's a lot of points. UNLV and New Mexico, 12 and a half. But you know what, Scott? I got one for the dumpster for you. A team that screwed me the other night. I was on Pacific. I'm going to take a shot with these upsets in these conferences in the Big West. Give me the San Diego Toreros plus 8.5 against Loyola Marymount. That's my garbage bin special for a Friday night.
Do you think the Miami Heat can hold on to the lead here versus the Minnesota Timberwolves? They're up 85-83. We know the Heat have had struggles.
Ooh. Yeah, tight game there, Joe. Tight game.
Yeah.
We're on the Raptors tonight, which is awesome. I don't know. These guys just keep on winning. Draft picks be damned. 114-12. Yes, I do. I actually do. Wow. The line kind of tells you something, Joe. They're minus 1.5 with just a 2-point lead. So, yeah, I have a lean to the Heat. Don't love the game, though, guys.
I tell you what, Cam, a little hunch bet. Take a look at that Toronto Raptors schedule. It's got 10 games against Topeka High.
Oh, I know.
Then to make the playoffs or the play-in is not the craziest thing in the world. It really isn't.
I'm on it, God. Don't worry about it. You're right. If we're going to win, you might as well go all the way. Have a good week.
Exactly.
Philadelphia 76ers, they tried to play two different things. They tried to play contender, and they tried to play protect Joel Embiid. It wasn't doing Joel Embiid any good. And this goes back to what I've talked about numerous times on this network. Why did they let him play in the first place? Why was he on the Olympic team? I mean, we looked at it last year in the playoffs against the Knicks. The damn kid was on one leg.
Betting above the rim. Only on SportsGrid.
Anyone that's been to a sporting event, the atmosphere before a game, I think Game Time Decisions has that same exact atmosphere. This is our arena. This is what we do. There is going to be an energy to Game Time Decisions that you will feel night in and night out. The excitement you get when you lock your bets in, when you're figuring out what you want to do, we can zone in on the biggest games each night. I want this to be the place that people come to before the games start so they feel as ready as possible to lock in their cards. We are going to hit every single one of those markets that you need to know about. We're going to go through every single thing, and I've got a great team behind me that's going to help me get the job done. There is not going to be a better place, I promise you, than Game Time Decisions to get that new information, react to it, and be able to then bet accordingly. We will have everything at our disposal, and we will use that to our advantage. I'm Kevin Walsh. Tune into Game Time Decisions from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern on SportsGrid.
The two guys that can do it all.
Too much electricity this morning.
This is a good time. We're having a lot of fun.
I had to do a triple take. Ka-ching! Why? Because of parity.
I didn't mean to offend.
Yeah, it's not going to happen.
Load management is a dirty word.
Let him rip.
You know what? Circumstances provide the results. What?
How do you do this one?
Oh, Donnie, you got such a good show there.
A network that is booming.
The Early Line. only on SportsGrid.
All right, welcome back in Game Live, Game Day here on the Grid. What more? Cam and his picks, top of the hour, him and Gabe Morency for the next two right here on the Grid, Sportswise Radio and TV. Last check of the board here. We got a few minutes here, Joe, so get our final selections out. Joe and I will be back tomorrow afternoon, 4 to 8, so whatever you don't get today, you can definitely get to tomorrow. Hockey still 1-0, Utah over Chicago midway through the second period, although that is locked right now, so we'll see what's going on there. We got three others that are starting. Minnesota at Vancouver at the top of the hour. Vancouver, basically pick them, small little price, minus 128 against Minnesota. We got St. Louis now minus 170 favorite at Anaheim. And then we got Vegas minus 230 against Pittsburgh. I heard Cam say he likes the Golden Knights in regulation, minus the 145. I like that play as well. It's our Black Cloud play of the day. But any of those three games strike your fancy?
Yeah, all three of these games, I think plenty of opportunities to jump in on. I do think the overtime look is great between the Minnesota Wild and the Vancouver Canucks, but I think at the end of the day, the Minnesota Wild can get it done. They won that last meeting back in December, and they've won 6 of the last 7. They've been so dominant out there on the road, Scott, that I just can't fade the Wild with Gustafsson in goal. And then when I look at the St. Louis Blues versus the Anaheim Ducks, I don't trust the Ducks to score enough goals in this game to keep it competitive with St. Louis. I think the Blues are making such a strong push right now for the playoffs that I will take them laying the 1.5 on that puck line. But I do think you could also look at the Ducks team total under 2.5 goals. That's coming in at minus 106. So that's where I'm going to go with those games. It should be interesting out there on the ice with Vegas and Pittsburgh. I think we just get a ton of goals. I think 3 out of Pittsburgh, but maybe 4 or 5 out of the Vegas Golden Knights. I'm going to look at Jack Eichel for 2+ points, Thomas Hertl for the points, and then Raquel for goal number 30 for the Penguins.
All right. I like Minnesota. They've beaten Vancouver 11 of their last 13, 11-2. So give me the Twinkie Juniors. I like Vegas in regulation, our Black Cloud play of the day. And I'll take a stab on Anaheim. They have lost 8 straight to St. Louis, 15 of 20. I get that. But the Ducks are playing some pretty good hockey. They really are. St. Louis is as well. But I'm at home. I'm getting plus 130. So I'll take a little stab on Anaheim. NBA later on tonight, I am going to go all in on De'Aaron Fox. Maybe we're putting the jinx on him, but first game back to Sacramento, as I mentioned, he's got run out of town, blamed for everything, right? They traded him to Siberia Jr. in San Antonio. He's got a major chip on his shoulder. His numbers aren't that bad. Point total's only 22.5, 6 assists, 3.5, 4 rebounds. I would play all 3. Hoping I go at least 2-1, and I think I will go at least 2-1, if not 3-0. But I'd be real surprised. It's supposed to be a high-scoring game, right? 230s. So I think he's going to hit, if not all 3 of those, Joe. I like I said, I'd be surprised if he doesn't hit at least 2 of those 3 numbers.
Oh, I completely agree. I'd alt that total. So 22.5 to the over, 25+ points at plus 122, 30+ points at plus 285. It's not out of the realm. You look at that revenge, Scott. It's brutal when these players come back and play the teams, especially in that location, right? He's really going to go off.
Yeah. When you get an NBA player that has a chip on his shoulder and really does want to play with the lack of defense that's being played, that usually spells some points. Denver's now laying 9. They tip off top of the hour as well against Phoenix. And then you got the Knicks and Clippers. Clippers are laying 7. I like the Clippers tonight. No Jalen Brunson. I think, I like playing on teams that lose their star players first game, but that's a huge loss for the Knicks. It's 2 weeks. I think that without Brunson in that lineup, man, I'd be surprised. And the Clippers are great. 18-5 against the spread, last 23 at home. Give me the Clippers laying 7.
Yeah, it's got to be the Clippers for me as well. I think they can come out really strong in that first quarter too. So I'd lay those points in the first quarter. And then looking at the Phoenix Suns, I've got Devin Booker circled here for his assists. I took him over 7.5 assists. That's coming in at -110. He's been getting a ton of assists out there. And when we look at the Denver Nuggets, they're allowing the 28th most assists out there in the league. So I'm thinking they're going to be coming in tonight nicely. And Devin Booker, you look at the last couple versus them, he's been able to go over this number of 7.5. So look for him to have a big night, Scott.
All right. That line did jump. So the double check, I love using RotoWorld. They're a really good site. Make sure that someone didn't drop out, if you will, for Phoenix, because that was 7.5, and now it's 9. So that's more than just people betting. I wonder if maybe Bradley Beal's not playing, but we will see. Last check of college basketball. Joe and I, again, will be back tomorrow. 75-72. We're at 147, 3.5 minutes left. All right, we're going to get there, hopefully, Purdue and Illinois. Talk to you tomorrow, Joe.